Wholesaling is too saturated. This is a comment that I continuously hear from my team, from people inside of the Vault, our Facebook group, and people trying to join our new community, the Titanium University. We have heard regularly where the question is asked, is wholesaling too saturated? There are people that are not succeeding in wholesaling that are just flat out blaming it on the fact that wholesaling has become too saturated. So in today's video, what I want to do is I want to look at the stats, the numbers, and determine, is wholesaling too saturated or is that just a myth? So bear with me as I'm going to be pulling up some different websites and some numbers that I've written down based off of my research. This isn't just my research. This is research that is done from my team, myself, as well as all of the different sources that these numbers are coming from. So first thing I want to point out is in quarter 4 of 2023, there were 46,419 homes bought by quote unquote investors. Okay. This was an 11% decline from the previous year. Okay. From quarter 4 of 2022, and a 50% drop from quarter 4 in 2021. Now, what's hilarious about that is that's we're declining how many houses investors are buying year over year. But Redfin came out with this article. This is actually a topic on Pardon the Disruption, where Redfin's article, the title of it is, investors bought 26% of the country's most affordable housing. Okay. So they're essentially saying, hey, investors are coming in and I don't want to say they're brainwashing, but somewhat telling the American people that investors are buying all of our affordable housing in the United States. But the numbers have actually declined year over year, even in the affordable housing category. But what I will say is 46,419 houses. That is a lot of houses being bought by investors. Now, what's not being said is how many houses were sold by investors, because out of those 46,419 homes, investors didn't keep every single one of them. There's a lot of fix and flippers out there, and there's also landlords that are going to liquidate, especially in this market where there's been quite a bit of appreciation. So they're going to sell some of their properties to then gain new ones at lower prices that need to be fixed up, and they're going to be turning their cash over to gain more assets. So how many of those assets or those houses were sold by investors? Okay, that's one thing to look at. Now, getting back to, is wholesaling too saturated? Let's look at some other stats here. I think these are important things, because what do we do as investors? We look to solve a seller's problem, and a lot of times those problems are going to be financially distressed and physically distressed properties. Okay, so let's look on the financially distressed side of things first. Quarter 3 of 2023, there were 100,546 foreclosure filings in the United States. In 2023, there were, so the entire year, 357,062 foreclosure filings in the United States. Okay. Now, that represents 0.26% of all U.S. housing units, which went up from 0.23 in 2022, but down from 0.36 in 2019. So we've kind of found a sweet spot somewhere between 0.2 and 0.4% of the houses that are facing foreclosure in the past 5 years. All right. So foreclosure filings have maintained about the same as far as percent wise across the United States. That's still a lot of houses, 357,000 foreclosure filings in 2023. The other thing I want to look at is, and I think this is important because with inflation and everything that's gone on in our economy, specifically over the past 12 to 18 months, is the household debt. Now, household debt reached an all-time high of $17.5 trillion, but that includes mortgages, okay? So what I want to take it down to is the consumer debt, the credit card debt. That went up to $1.13 trillion in credit card debt in the United States, okay? Now, you're looking at the cost of groceries is at a record high. The cost of gas is super high. The cost of electricity is super high. All of these things are rising with inflation. And then we've got this astronomical amount of household debt. What does this do? This causes financial distress on families. And what does that mean? At some point in time, these people are going to struggle affording their houses. This is where, as wholesalers, we come in and we help them, where maybe they don't come to grips with the fact that they're financially distressed. Maybe the property becomes physically distressed because they can no longer maintain it, because the money that they would use to maintain that property is now used to buy $10 worth of eggs, $8 worth of milk, right? The things that normally didn't cost as much. So they're not maintaining the properties. The properties become distressed physically. They're not maintained, which means the property value goes down. This means those people can become motivated sellers where they need to sell the property to a real estate investor. Okay. Now, how many vacant houses are there in the United States? Now, here's the thing. Vacant houses doesn't necessarily mean that the property needs to be sold to an investor because they're motivated, but it does signify that there's a potential for motivation. So when I pulled up how many vacant houses are there in the United States, 16 million houses are vacant in the United States. What I thought was crazy is almost 25% of the city of New Orleans is vacant. That's insane. The other thing that I thought was crazy about this is I pulled up an article on Yahoo Finance that was written on December 11th, 2023 about housing vacancy rates and how high they are in certain areas. So it talks about 22.9% of the houses in New Orleans. 1/3 of the top 25 cities in America with the highest vacancy rates is in Florida. Okay. Now, part of the reason why that would be the case is that vacant houses could be rental properties, they can be second houses, they can be vacation homes. Okay, so that would signify that they're vacant. But what I also found on here is that right here, why are there so many empty houses in America? So they broke it down. 26% of these homes are empty because they're available for rent. 17% remain vacant as they're used only part-time, like vacation or secondary homes. But then another 8% of the 16 million are in a state of disrepair, in repairs, or in renovations. Okay. So I did the math of 16 million homes at 8%. That means in the United States, there's 1.28 million homes that are vacant due to being physically distressed, and they're either being repaired or they need to be repaired. Now, there is no way for us to know how many real estate wholesalers there are. But based off of these numbers, when I can look and I can see that using the criteria that an LLC or a corporation bought, or a hedge fund or a trust bought properties, they're considering that to be an investor. 46,419 homes were bought in Q4 of 2023. Okay. But we know that last year, 357,000 houses went into foreclosure. We have consumer debt at an all-time high of 1.13 trillion. We have 16 million houses that are vacant. Now, here's the other thing that I'm thinking about with those vacant houses and why I've always liked targeting vacant houses is how many families now are looking and saying, dude, we're facing quite a bit of debt, and we have this secondary home, this vacation home in Florida that maybe we shouldn't keep anymore. We have quite a bit of equity. Let's cash in that equity to eliminate some of our debt due to inflation, due to the fact that everything's become more expensive. But just eliminating all of those and going down to there's 1.28 million houses that are in disrepair, that are in need of investors coming in or are already owned by investors and are getting repaired. So do I think wholesaling is too saturated? No. The other thing that I know about this is I've been doing nothing but real estate investing and wholesaling since January 1st of 2015. So 9 years and 3 months at this point, okay? Nothing else. It is very rare for me to come into contact with another wholesaler that I know. Like, it's a very small percent. Now, there's times where, say, we cold call, or back in the days when we were doing cold texting, or we send direct mail where the seller will tell us, oh, I get calls from you guys all the time, okay? But why is that the case? Because we're doing cold outreach. We're trying to reach them just like everybody else, and we're normally triggered by the same things, motivating factors, vacant property, pre-foreclosure, the things that we're talking about here. This is why it's important to have multiple marketing strategies as a real estate investor and have sellers coming to you before you have to go to them. Because the moment that they become triggered to sell, they are going to start doing their own research on the internet to find someone that can solve their problem. Who is a buyer that will buy my property cash and quick and as is, and I don't have to do any repairs? So is it too saturated? No. Do you maybe need to increase your marketing and become a better marketer? Yes. That's where I think wholesalers are failing themselves, is turning the lights on and letting these people know the fact that there are almost 1.3 million houses sitting vacant that need repairs. We should be reaching out to each and every one of them, letting them know, hey, if you need to get rid of that without finishing those repairs, I'd love to come in. I'd love to be your solution. 357,000 foreclosures. We should be reaching out to every single one of those. I just did a live with Tyler Austin about being first to market, and it was mind-blowing because what's he talking about? He's talking about foreclosures, tax delinquency, which we didn't even look up tax delinquency, probate cases, another great opportunity for us to come in and solve a problem for a family that's going through not only maybe inheriting a property, but also the emotional distress of losing a loved one, inheriting an unwanted property. This is why we use that language, because there are so many times where it's like, dude, I just inherited a property 5 states away from me. What am I going to do with it? And oh, by the way, it hasn't been rehabbed or remodeled since the 1970s. They need us as wholesalers to come in and solve their problem. So no, I don't think wholesaling is oversaturated. I just think we need to get better at marketing, turning the lights on, and talking to the right sellers. Now, one of the other things that I thought that was interesting about this is as I was doing some research about the states with the most vacancies, I also saw that South Carolina was on here, and that is one of the states that brought down laws and regulations against wholesalers. I also noticed that New Jersey was on here. I saw that Delaware was on here. Those are attorney states. Those are notorious for being difficult to even do a normal real estate transaction, much less a wholesale transaction. So right now, as wholesalers, we have a duty to make sure that we are leaving a mark as being a positive influence inside of our cities, our states, and inside of the real estate marketplace, doing things the right way, not locking up properties and putting memorandums down to get paid by somebody else and making sure they can't close their deal, not lying and being deceitful, but truly coming in and helping motivated sellers cash out of their situations that they need to move on from. Because the facts are, in some of these locations, I think these cities, these states are being impacted by the fact that they've already cracked down and made wholesaling difficult in their location. So to me, is wholesaling saturated? No. Wholesaling is needed more than ever right now because we are facing financial crisis here in the United States. $1.13 trillion in consumer debt. 357,000 people facing foreclosure last year. What is that going to look like this year? And then we're talking about the decline of houses being bought by investors. But yet Redfin wants to come out and change the narrative and say, well, investors bought 26% of the affordable housing. Be careful what you're listening to and research all of the numbers, not just how they're spinning the story. Because the facts are, this economy is going to need investors to come in. But they want to spin it that we're taking all of the affordable housing and running away with it. So don't get turned off by the fact that you're hearing a seller say they've talked to another wholesaler or they've talked to, I get 50 calls like this a day. No, they don't. They don't get 50 calls a day. Okay. Don't think that you can't come in and make a great living being a wholesaler by being honest, ethical, doing the right thing, and helping solve people's problems that are facing both financial crisis and also properties that, quite frankly, just looking at the numbers, it doesn't look like many people can afford fixing their houses anymore. So we are needed. We are needed. So if this is a fear of yours, it's false evidence appearing real. Okay? Don't fall for it. We are needed in this marketplace. Fight for it. Go out and do the right thing. So at the end of the day, no, wholesaling is not saturated. Let's go out. Let's make a difference in other people's lives. And in the meantime, create your own reality. Let me know what you think about wholesaling being too saturated. Let me know what you think about what's going on in our economy in the comments. Make sure you like this and subscribe to the channel, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.